Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's late night happy hour here with Brian and Andy Kamenetzky Brothers tonight, joined by Jourdan Rodrigue from The Athletic, covers the Rams, covers the NFL. It's weekend one of the NFL season, which is weird, kind of snuck up on you, but it's here. Hey, Jourdan, how are you?
I'm doing well. I feel a little out of it, not going to lie, because it really feels like, you're at the facilities straight through the week during camp and all of that, but it still doesn't quite feel real, right? That there's football happening. I think after last night when, I watched pieces of the game while I was like, shout out to my editor, Rich Hammond, like super late on filing a piece.
Shout out to Rich. We know.
Yeah. He mentioned, he actually called me. It was like, Jourdan was not on point.
I know. So. I was so distracted by actual football happening. And I texted him at like 10. I was like, hey, about 5 more minutes left on this. It's like 11:30 was when I filed because there was football on and it was so cool. But so, it was really interesting because after that, going into facilities today, it really felt real. And then I felt sort of like that, like shook Mr. Krabs meme, because it felt like, am I ready for this? And it's almost like if you're just sitting on your couch, which I quite literally was for most of the off season covering from afar. And then all of a sudden someone asks you to go out and run an 800-meter dash as fast as you can. So I'm feeling a little out of it in that regard, but I'm really excited. And, I still obviously want to make sure that everyone's safe and healthy, but man, the happy levels in my brain just go up when I actually get to watch football. So that's pretty cool.
Well, we got a ton of stuff that we want to get into because to say that if the NFL season snuck up on you and you do this for a living, think about what it did for people like us. We're doing actually we'll talk about this because I texted you during our fantasy draft to get some advice.
I remember that. Yeah.
We'll do that. But we want to talk about the stadium. We want to talk about kind of how the NFL got here. We want to talk about the NFC West and obviously the Rams. My first question, though, is like, what is the process of covering this like? Like, what are they having you guys do? Because we've all, Andy and I have been talking about the bubble in the NBA for the last, 2 months. But, how is the NFL doing this? How do you travel? Where are you allowed to go? Give us the whole thing.
Yeah, so we had the option of traveling this year with the Athletic, but I actually opted out of traveling to the road games. For me, it was something that was not my comfort level with it. Mm-hmm. Just I feel like I did my part already driving across the country in a pandemic.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
No, but really what it is they're not giving any in-person interviews, right? So there's no reason to go on the road because there's going to be nothing in person for access. So normally what you'd really love to do on the road is get, that extra locker room access and really get a feel for the fans in the stadium, et cetera, et cetera. None of that's happening this year. So for me, I was weighing kind of cost benefit in terms of health being the cost here and staying healthy being the benefit. So that's kind of where I was at. I was a little nervous to be on the road.
So does that mean essentially
the media contingent is going to be really small at a lot of these games? There's a lot of there's really no reason to travel.
Yeah, well, and some people will, and that's fine. It's just kind of a preference thing. But for me, I was not. The very little what I saw is very little benefit to actually being on the road did not outweigh kind of the risk I felt in the act of doing it. So for me, everything is going to be. So, the contingents are supposed to be really limited. So Dallas media, it's this massive beat. Dallas Cowboys have this insanely huge beat of writers and reporters and multimedia experts and things like that. Well, only 50 people can be in the press box at SoFi. And the beat has 300 people on it in Dallas, right? When you count up radio,
barely exaggerating, yeah.
Yeah, and it's huge, and so it's crazy because then they had to kind of go through a sort of a Hunger Games situation of picking who's going to be going.
This is something Brian and I talked about before the NBA bubble opened up, because we knew that we were not going to be NBA reporters who would get access to the bubble. We wouldn't make the cut. But, and neither one of us had any desire to go anyway. But there were going to be a lot of NBA writers who wouldn't make the cut, who would be really upset about this. So we saw it as Hunger Games, but what we really wanted to have happen is have the cut process televised. Like we wanted to see we wanted to see which writers made it, which ones didn't, and have like the whole world. You know, like how in the NBA All-Star game, they have now the selections, you pick your teams and it's public and it's supposed to like create tension, that sort of thing. We wanted that for the media. Even if this is so incredibly inside baseball, nobody is going to care except for those of us on basketball media. I mean, on basketball Twitter, I should say. It would have been spectacularly entertaining for us, like a specific audience.
Instead of like actual physical competitions, you just get really like passive aggressive tweets, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like who can fire off the most passive aggressive snap at each other, you know, like that would be what it's all about.
So really your access to players this year is really just going to live and die. Like in terms of direct access to players, trying to build up any type of rapport with them, it's all going to be practice, essentially, correct?
And games, obviously, because they'll still make guys. So what they do is, we show up, right? And we are in we're all outdoors at their facilities in Thousand Oaks up at Cal Lutheran. Everything's outdoors. The players are outdoors, media's outdoors. We all have like sections of tents that we're in, and literally no inside access if you aren't getting tested. So they are not testing media, right? So we have no access to anybody. So, and then it's all mask mandatory and sanitizer stations and things like that. Well, so everything we do in terms of interviews is we stand around this big TV. The players are in a room because they're getting tested. They're in a room with a screen that's blocked right on the other side of a wall where we're standing. And they're waving at us, right, as we're doing interviews with them on a TV outside of the room where they're sitting. So it's like that wall is there because we're not getting tested, so we don't have any in-person access. Right. And so they wrote, isn't that so funny? And Jalen Ramsey today, we were on the phone, we were talking with him in this space. He opened up his press conference by saying, "Is this not weird for you guys?" And we're like, "No, Jalen, it's weird."
They like project on the back thing and do like little shadow puppets. I mean,
Johnny Hecker, the punter, he really likes to mess with us because he'll knock on the window or he'll like wave outside the window, and then he'll come circle around the back entrance while we're doing other interviews with players and just like stand behind us. So he's like our Zoom background, but then we're not allowed to get close to him. So. But
like, is it the same setup though between you and players, or roughly the same setup in terms of game day as well? Okay.
Yeah. So they'll bring them out in a rotation. So we'll get Sean, and we get coordinators once a week. There's still the same rules apply. Like we get coordinators once a week with Sean every day. We get a certain amount of players every day, and we can request those guys. They'll set up one-on-ones if we need them, but it's all phone. And then it's after the game, it's all on a screen.
I guess what I was getting at, I didn't make it clear when I was asking, is are they always going to be able to see who's asking them the questions and having like that type of interplay? Because we don't currently have that down in the bubble. And the reason I even thought about asking you that, just in terms of beyond just letting fans or viewers right now get an inside look at this, for somebody that's new to the beat like you, I thought that would be really an interesting challenge potentially, just like in terms of how you're going about trying to get to know the players of this team that you're covering.
Yeah, so I am the annoying person on the Zooms because I'm a handshake person. I love shaking hands. When I covered the Panthers, I used to stand out in the mornings at the practice field before anyone else got there and catch everybody as they walked out so that I could get FaceTime with people and shake hands and, just talk a little football, talk life, talk whatever with coaches and assistants and everyone as they'd come out to the field for practice every morning. You can't do that here, and it's crushing. But at the same time, I've found at times goofy ways of making up for it. And so I guess I'm going to share this with you guys now.
Please.
Too late now.
Yeah, so I've already started this. So before most of the Zooms, if it's someone who I haven't talked to before, I'll say, let's say it was the first time we were on with Michael Brockers, I'd say, Hi, Michael. This is Jourdan Rodrigue with the Athletic Los Angeles. I'm new. So nice to virtually meet you. Thanks for having me on the beat. Like, just super like over the top, just because. And then you have to make gestures, right? Because you're wearing a mask, and so they can't actually physically see whose mouth is moving. So I'm like,
my God.
Hey!
You're like, oh, over here. I'm
like,
the one.
And like if I'm asking a question and I'm like, so it's a scrum of people, right? And so sometimes you're not like directly in the camera. So like I'll ask a question of like Sean.
This sounds terrible.
And I'll be like, hey.
But that's really what I was getting at and asking you about this, because
it's hard.
I was really hard. But like, you know,
yeah,
I mean, but like specifically with you, just because like the difference between you versus somebody like Lindsey Theory or Gary Klein, like if nothing else, a lot of these players who've been there a while, they'll recognize their voices, even if they can't tell who's talking through the mask or anything like that. So like this is really, I think, going to be an interesting challenge for you.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I will say I thought it was going to be tougher to establish the connections. But I think everyone's kind of in the same mindset where we're all just kind of doing what we can. And so it's been cool because at this point, you know, they've cycled through much of the roster in terms of the initial Zooms, and the players, I think, have been really attentive to that because they don't want to not know who's talking to them either. It's interesting because if I were sitting there and I was fresh off a practice field and someone whose voice I didn't recognize was just asking me a question, I'd kind of just answer it and like tune out. But what I've really seen from these guys is really like kind of honing in and lasering in to make sure they really are getting, especially because we're standing in a group. So it's almost like the act of like, who's talking right now, which is when the goofy gestures kind of kick into play. And then I look like an idiot, but it's fine because I'm like, we're all just doing the best we can. I'm going to be an idiot sometimes. It just is going to happen. So.
And it does leave you the option if you have a question that you're not really sure of, or you think might be stupid, just identifying yourself as Gary Klein. And
he
going
never asked
there.
stupid questions. That's a problem. That wouldn't work because he never asked stupid questions.
That is true. Gary's on the set. Before we get the next part of this, because
now I'm just trying to think of who's around the team a lot that asks stupid questions. Now I'm actually really trying to think about this.
I don't think anybody. I mean, it's been a really good beat.
Oh, there's always like Jourdan. There's always
like, don't do this to me, you guys.
Somebody.
I'm the one who asked this.
I'm not asking you to narc. I'm not asking you to narc anybody out, but you can at least acknowledge there's always somebody.
There's always some.
You know what I will say? You know what I'll say is really, really funny is so in a locker room situation, you'd be writing a feature, right? And you guys know my work. Like I love writing features, right? And profiles. Yeah. And so it would take you maybe 3 or 4 days of really intense going from locker to locker, private conversations with players, really digging and having that experience. But it would only take like maybe a week if it's a typical feature, not one of your like long-term 6-month-long things. If it's a typical feature over at The Athletic, like it's, 3 or 4 days where you're really digging with people at their lockers, right? And in person. And when it's in this format, we only get a certain amount of players a day, right? And so, and like, you don't always get to pick. You can request, but you don't always get to pick. So you will be asking the same like 1 or 2 questions about a subject over and over and over and over again. And it's a different person, so they don't know you're doing that. But everyone else on the beat knows, like, you ask me the same question. Yeah. And they also put up the broadcast after the fact and the transcript. And so it's so funny because I've been getting tweets that are like, why the hell do you keep asking about this? And I'm like, trust me, like there's a story coming. And I would normally, this would be done by now. It would take like, but it takes like 3 or 4 weeks to get that specific topic tackled person by person because you don't have that private space. And that's really difficult.
So all right. So before we get like nitty gritty into the division, into the Rams, the other question I had, because we had you on our radio show a little while ago at a time when it really 100% seemed like the NFL did not have its shit together. Like there was no CBA, there was no testing program. There was like, it was basically just like kind of, it seemed like everybody was just wishful thinking into the thing. And then camp opens and there's been very little COVID. There's been very little infections. It seems like things are actually going very well. How do they get from that point to this point, and how likely is it that they stay in this kind of good place?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's really, when you're in training camp, that's all you're doing. Literally, if you're a player, you show up pretty much before the sun comes up. You've just come straight from your house. You show up, you basically exist at the facility. You eat breakfast there, you shower there, you get ready to go about your day there. You go to meetings, you're there until then the sun starts going down. You have dinner there if you stay late enough. Then you go back home and you're so tired because it's just so much at training camp. And so I think that helps, right? I think that helps players not introduce outside variables into their quote unquote ecosystems that they're in. It helps keep sort of a semblance of like a faux bubble almost. And then the other thing is they're not traveling. So I think that's huge. They're not traveling, and there's also no fatigue from this. I think, as you saw as a society, in certain pockets, people got the fatigue of quarantining or from being this, taking so much precaution. Well, NFL players have that extra like hyper competitive gear. So it's all messaging of, if you don't do this, you're going to mess up our bubble and we're going to lose games. The person who wins the Super Bowl is basically going to be the one who stays the healthiest. And so coaches and staff honing in and hammering in that message, especially through training camp, it's very much like, okay, we're in a tunnel. This is how we're going to win games, is we stay healthy, right? And it's very much that messaging that's been absorbed. Once you start getting guys on planes, traveling from city to city, team hotels, maybe your curfew is a little bit later. Maybe it's not as strictly enforced. Once you start doing these types of things, that's when things get really, really complicated. So I think it's fantastic that they've done so well so far. And obviously you want everybody to stay as safe as possible. But once you start introducing like air travel, different hotels, team dinners in different places, like that's when things start to get really dicey. So I don't think we're going to still see these numbers be as good as they are right now.
So you're expecting some sort of, okay.
Yeah. But also it's one where if it happens, I think that there are so many now contingency plans for an emergency situation of that nature. And like, it even feels weird to talk about because like you just don't want it to happen in the first place. You just want everyone to be safe and healthy. But at the same time, like if it happens, there's all these plans now for what to do just in case, all the roster expansion rules for practice squads and different guys who are you're allowed to travel your entire team, including your practice squad this year, like all of these different things for a sort of a worst case scenario. And then I'm personally not ruling out sort of a midseason stoppage. Like I'm just not. I think that's a very, very dramatic scenario of what could happen, but I'm not ruling it out because especially with college football doing what it's doing right now and sort of trying to figure out what it's going to be this year, I am not ruling out sort of a midseason stopping point.
Well, I remember when we were talking with you for our former show on 710 about the NFL just seeming like they weren't being realistic about the way this was actually going to shake out. Like it felt like they were very much projecting all is well. Everything is fine. When, you looked out the window, the world was not fine, much less, sports in America. Beyond what you were saying in terms of, or putting aside what you were saying about there will be some positive tests at some point over the course of the season. Do you get a sense at least that the league is realistic about the way this is going to shake out? Because like baseball, for example, I think eventually snapped into reality, but it seemed like for a while
it took like 27 Marlins to do it though.
Right.
But eventually
they were also,
the hang of it.
Right. But they were also so consumed with the dollars of it all and the money of it all and the numbers and the CBA and all that different stuff that the actual execution of the season fell to the wayside. And that's why I think baseball started out so chaotic and eventually smoothed out. I think there are similarities in the way the NFL was treating this offseason. Like, do you get a sense, though, that if nothing else, they really have, I think, a grounded vision of how this could work out and how big an undertaking this is?
No.
That is so not the answer I was expecting.
No, and I'll tell you what, I really do have like the data to back this up. Like I'll tell you why. I'm not giving any credit to the NFL on this. I'm really not. where I am giving credit.
By the way, feels like a very open-ended statement for anything with the NFL. I'm not giving the NFL credit
Just
for blank.
Copy and paste that wherever you want. Yeah.
Social justice issues, systemic racism, all these different things that they are trying to get in front of.
They get
domestic violence.
They get no credit from me. No,
but nor should they.
Where I will give them credit, the proper people to give credit to first is the players for taking this responsibility on as their own and sort of helping keep these sort of ecosystems, Sean McVay's favorite word, intact. But really what the NFL did is what it always does on some level, which is hide behind its individual entities in some way. And in this case, the league itself hid behind every single one of these team doctors who has not slept since last February, because they were planning out this ecosystem and all of these football operations people on an individual microcosmic level. The NFL just was like, we'll give you some guidelines. They're going to change every couple days because they still are changing, you guys. They are still giving them different. The league is not on the same page with the league. And it's really been up to the teams on an individual and microcosmic level to create safe spaces for their players. And that's where I think the credit should go. Because I don't think the league is like fumbling around in the dark, right? The league came home drunk and can't find the light switch. And individual teams.
Been there, like, I don't want to be too harsh on them for that.
No judgment to you there, Andy. Yeah. No, we've all been there. But, but really the individuals within the teams, and in this case with the Rams, I'm talking about Sophie Harlan and Reggie Scott and their team, like they're the ones that have built an entire new planet that now feels weirdly normal showing up there every day, but is so different and like that's everywhere across the league, is the individuals within the teams who have worked to create these ecosystems while literally not being given direct and cohesive strategies from the NFL, like from the league office, and kind of just like, all right, we're flying by the seat of our pants. Let's try it. And it's so interesting to me because now the league, if it's successful, then the league will go and hide behind all of that. And it's like the shield. And no, I'm not giving them any credit. It's all locals. Support local. Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple names. How has this worked with the Rams then? Like, what is their setup? Like, what have they been doing?
Yeah, it's cool. Like, it's insane, but it's cool. So they built a 70-foot tent on the side of the mountain at which they practice. So it's like, it's wild. Like you kind of pull around a corner in Thousand Oaks into Cal Lutheran's like sort of back lot area where the Rams fields are. And you just see this like behemoth of a tent just like looming up over the mountaintops. And it's all open-sided. It's got like hand sanitizer stations at every level, massive fans to keep air currents and airflow going. That's where they have their team meetings, because you're not allowed to have more than 10 people in a room together. And if you have 10 people, they have to be 6 feet apart, right? So they've completely converted indoor spaces into small capacity meeting rooms, although they are larger spaces. And everything else happens outside. Literally everything happens outside. And so they keep, even the garage doors to the training rooms, they are kept open at all times, because the airflow, what they found and what research had showed was that, even in a worst case scenario, because they are being tested every single day and you can't come into the facility without 2 positive tests in a row and all of that. And so
2 negative tests.
Yeah, excuse me. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
They'd actually prefer you not come in if you have 2 positive tests in a row.
Jourdan Rodrigue says the Rams demand their players be COVID positive, or they are not stepping inside the facility. It's an outside the box
plan. Should I not have tweeted that?
It's an outside the box plan, but the Rams stand behind it.
Breaking.
Okay,
everyone else is digging. We're zagging on this whole COVID.
That's right.
We're gonna forget that.
I'll tell you what, I thought it was crazy when they went away from all that 11 personnel stuff, but this is really way beyond that.
You really want to know who the new Sean McVay? I'll tell you what.
that they're demanding the players shake hands seems really weird.
I don't even know what I'm
saying. They're the Los Angeles herd immunities.
Oh no.
It happens. No, it's okay. We knew what you meant.
2 negative tests. I was thinking.
Stan Kroenke says it's not real. What?
I was saying it's been really positive that they haven't had
a lot of negative tests.
But I got all like my words came out too fast. It was terrible. Okay, so this is why I write. This is why I don't talk on TV. Okay, so you can't come in the facility without 2 negative tests.
Much better.
Okay.
Much better.
Cool. Okay. So we got there. So I'm sorry.
No, it was we. It's hilarious.
What you meant?
Guys, I'm glad the lighting's weird in here because my face is really red right now. But so they found that like the natural air currents, particularly in the region that they're in, kind of help dissipate the air particles and whatever droplets might be in the air particles and all of that, right? So that's part of the reason why they moved everything outside, where they found being outside is safer. It's why you're seeing people allowed to eat outside at restaurants, but not inside, those kinds of things. So they're doing that. And then obviously guys get tested every single day. That's, I guess, going to happen continually through the first part of the season when the NFL was kind of going back and forth on whether they were going to do like, you know, every 2 days, every 3 days, weekly. But they're sticking with every single day right now. So, and then it's like you just notice all of these changes in like the little details. So, you know, they don't have handles on anything. They have foot pedals. So you can use your foot to open like the Gatorade cooler, for example, instead
That's
of
clever.
Yeah, it was just like little details that I thought were really smart. They're like constantly out there wiping things down, sanitizing every surface that you could possibly come into contact with. Obviously, there's no contact with us who are not getting tested.
Filthy media.
So we're like, yes, we're like shunned. So, and then, but I mean, and then everybody wears a mask and Sean Maffei like tried out one of those like Andy Reid face shields and like decided against it real quick. So
He's
far too good looking to be covering up with a mask like that.
Once he realized it will fog up, he's like, oh.
But like, wait, so is every team, what are the teams like, what is Buffalo going to do in November or December? Like they can't have everything be outside. So like, what do teams that can't have everything outside do?
Yeah, some teams aren't doing that. Some teams are indoors, but they're still distancing. And like, so the Rams wanted a space where they could all be together as a team. Other teams can't have that unless they're on Zoom. So like you look at the Chargers, for example, you'll notice like in Hard Knocks, when Anthony Lynn is addressing the entire team, it's always on Zoom, right? Well, the Rams are able to do that actually in person, and Sean and Brandon Staley and Kevin O'Connell are allowed to kind of be up in front of the room in person because they have this massive tent, right? So all of their team meetings and then like defensive meetings, offensive meetings, anything larger than your specific position groups are able to be outside. And so other teams can still do it inside. You just have to have your big meetings on Zoom, which is not like, that's not fun and it's not popular. I think they really wanted to be able to just engage them on a deeper level. Plus, they literally did not have the space inside to have big socially distant team meetings because of the way that those facilities are designed.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, for people who don't know, have never been out there, the Rams facility is not massive like that. You know, it's sitting at Cal Lutheran. It's like buildings and stuff. There's nothing particularly huge about it. One suggestion, LA Rams FC, you got to do some shots. I think maybe they're thinking that Jourdan already is. You got to do the show with some shots. It's Friday night. Not necessarily, although we don't know what's in that cup she keeps drinking out of.
I am drinking my coffee.
Really?
This is coffee. Yeah. Guys, I'm in season. Who sleeps during the season? I'm on Sean McVay hours, man.
That's true.
I mean, I gave up on sleeping a long time ago. Once you have one or more children, sleep becomes, fairy dust. It becomes a myth. It's like a Yeti. Like it's something that people talk about, but doesn't really exist. So like the team, like let's actually get into what you are expecting with this team. Like they are in a rough division. Like this is a really hard division. It may be the hardest division in the NFL. We begin as always, Jared Goff. You've written a lot about his off season, his Goff season, as it were. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's that been about, and what are some of the things that in specifically they've been working on, or like that they've been focusing on with him?
Yes. So thank you for the plug over at theathletic.com, where you can get a subscription for $1 a month. We love a discount.
That's a plug.
Yeah.
That's a plug.
We love a good
That's
discount.
true. Yes, that is a bargain.
Yes. And so I wrote a lot about Jared Goff this offseason because I think that was the number one question people had was, is he going to be good this year, or at least better than what he was? So he trained with 3D QB down in Huntington Beach. Adam Dato, the former USC pitcher, he runs that company with Tom House, who is this mechanics guru legend who worked with Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, works with all these young quarterbacks now, but the old guys still come back and visit him for mechanics work and things like that. He's just worked with so many superstar quarterbacks, and also importantly, quarterbacks who have been able to extend their career far past what we would think the norm would be for, kind of your typical quarterback career. So Tom House and Adam Dato, they worked with Jared Goff all off season. And what it was it was such a multifaceted sort of self-scout process. So he had to go back and watch himself and understand where he went wrong, first and foremost, on a deeper level than your weekly scouting, like watching your own game tape and things like that. So a lot of things he picked up on was okay, I can't operate well in chaos, which means when your pocket breaks down and you're throwing what we call off schedule, then you can't operate well. Or he's saying to himself, okay, I'm seeing that I can't operate well. My mechanics are not sound when I'm doing that. I'm not making sound decisions when I'm doing that. Okay. And so then the other thing that they do is they go and they talk to your teammates and your coaches. Yeah. And then it's and they tell them okay, don't hold back. Right. And so in some parts, Jared, Jared's not really one to have an ego. So it was, I would think that would be a really interesting process, because you really, to hear those kinds of things, he didn't have a very mechanically sound season last year. So to sort of hear the types of things that maybe teammates had issues with in live action, and that coaches wanted him to work on, and then to be okay, this is my notebook of grievances, not to sound dramatic, because it's all constructive, right?
This wasn't an intervention.
Right. No, it's not
it's every player on the roster gets their own Festivus.
Yeah. It's Jared, we need to talk. It wasn't like that. No, and it's all constructive, because it builds toward, okay, if it's not just me seeing this, it's other people who I need to command their attention. I need to be a presence that can lead. So I need to understand where they're seeing kind of the disconnect happening and then fix it. And so that's a part of it. The nutritionist, that's another part of it. So he got a dietitian, and he brought that person in for the first time in his career is on a nutrition plan. And so not only all of these things are happening.
What is it really quickly? Or what do you know has changed? Anything?
I don't know. I mean, he makes when we ask him, he kind of jokes it off a little bit. So I think it's one of those situations where he's not going to tell us. I remember it was a big thing back in Carolina when Cam went pescatarian and then he went vegan. I don't think it's anything like that here. But I really don't know what it is. And so that's,
was he eating so bad before that you have to really keep it secret?
What I think what I would, and I say this to Rich all the time, it's educated speculation, where more than what's going on, but you can't really say exactly what's going on. It's how can I use the food that I eat to maximize my energy and maximize my efficiency in certain ways. So it's not Jared Goff's only drinking smoothies during the season. Jared Goff's a juicer now. It's not like that.
Do you know that he's not only drinking smoothies during the season?
Definitively, yes. I know that he's not only drinking smoothies during the season.
You've been around, you covered Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a physical specimen. He looks like he's from another planet. There are guys
there's nobody else. Yeah.
Right, who look like Jared Goff, other than being tall, does not look like he's from another planet. He's got a little dad bod kind of he is not imposing in that way. So my guess would be, it would be the kind of thing what can I do to, maximize my build strength, build whatever it is, because it's not like I don't know, injury prevention. He's too young to be worrying about, how can I take off weight to prolong my career, whatever it is. At least you would think. So, like, I don't know, fill out, dude. That's sort of what I'm thinking.
Well, but no, I mean, I'm not to sound harsh, but no, I mean, like that's
no, be harsh, especially if it's Brian, be harsh.
You're wrong. No, super harsh. No, really, what it is there's no like, okay, I need to get jacked and then people will listen to me better. Like there's not anything like that. Like it's really like, how can I maximize what my body is taking in? How can I use every single molecule of that to better perform and be more efficient with my energy?
Right. That's kind of what I'm
exactly
getting at.
What it is. No,
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. As just because he's not. No, it is because he's not. Shut up, Andy. No,
it's not what you were getting at.
No, what I mean by that is like he's not one of these guys who is like this
man, get some meat on your bones.
But like he's not like maximizing his stuff. In part, I think means taking a physical structure, which isn't the same as some of these other guys, in the league who are just physically probably more talented. In fairness to Brian Jordan,
I'm guessing you've yet to see Goff shirtless. It's not impressive. Like, if I'm being honest, like as compared to like Aaron Donald, where you're like, Jesus, like, good Lord, man. Like, that's a ripped dude. Like that's somebody, because I don't know what type of locker room access, anything like that. Like, we were in.
They should make them walk through the tent like that, just so you can understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
we're getting off track. We're getting a little off track here. So let me just say, he's not trying to get ripped. He's not trying to get cut or whatever. Like you're not going to see him down on like Venice Beach or anything like that, right? Like what it is he's literally trying to, I know that you say that like, it's not time for him to start thinking about elongating and extending his career and protecting. Think about how many times this guy has thrown the football. I mean, it really is time for him to start thinking about
especially Goff. Goff has gotten hit a lot.
There's so many studies now, and they do a lot of work with this over at 3DQB. There's so many studies in terms of how nutrition can help you better heal, how you can better recover via nutrition. There's so many different things now that are out there about, especially like specific portion control, different types of macronutrients, things like that you can study to figure out how you can best not only maximize your performance on the field, but also how you recover after that, how your muscle fibers and tissues repair themselves after strain and duress. So, okay, skipping past that part.
I feel like I haven't covered myself in glory in the explaining what I mean category, but go ahead.
We're going
to move on. We're going to move on. I'm just saying, this was not my best effort.
This is an interesting question though, from LA Rams FC. Goff dropped weight to be more mobile. Do you picture him running more or that becoming a thing? Because he's not a great runner by the definition of running.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the thing is I don't picture him running more because it's designed that way. I picture him running out of necessity.
Sure.
And that's the other thing I wanted to get to that's really important about the work he did in the offseason, which in part he wanted to lean out a little bit because you can better add foot speed that way. It's really hard to add foot speed if you're just not gifted at all in that way. And
his rookie year, I remember watching him going like, has he ever run? Like, I don't mean as a quarterback. I mean, like, literally, like has Jared Goff ever run?
It's like my oldest, my 10-year-old, when he first like started playing soccer, used to run like a person who watched somebody running on TV and was doing an impression of that person. I sort of got that impression with Goff.
It's like Phoebe and Friends.
Yes, exactly.
That's not running. This is running.
Yeah, I mean, Goff was one of the most awkward runners I'd ever seen. Like, and he's gotten better. But like what you're getting to, and this all I assume relates back to the idea of what you have to do when plays break down, and try to become more effective if that line isn't providing that type of protection.
Yeah. So the really big tell this offseason was that they immediately started his offseason training with the assumption, not the possibility, but the assumption that he would be operating in near constant chaos. that's a really big tell. And so for him, there are certain mechanics that come with throwing on the run. There are mechanics that are specific that come with throwing off your back foot, throwing off your front foot. What they found was in the past when he would be throwing, and this goes back to protecting the body and especially protecting the shoulder. They found that
I was wrong. I'm sorry. He needs to protect himself. Okay.
You could tell the fantasy football story just to get me back a little bit if you want to. But
only if Cam Akers sucks do I have to tell that story. If not, you're in great shape.
So they found that he was relying a little too much on his arm just by itself in those situations. And that puts a lot of unnecessary strain on the joints within the shoulder, right? If you're just relying on the arm in those situations. So there are specific mechanics that can not only make you more efficient when you're operating off schedule like that, and when you're operating on the run, going back to my guy's question here, is like, when you're operating on the run, which they understood he was just going to be doing. So he did add foot speed. He did lean out a little bit, allegedly. He looks better than I saw on tape from him working on the run. Again, like he's couldn't be hit for the last several weeks. So I don't know for sure until Sunday what he looks like, but he looks better to me. And so all of that kind of works together in not only operating off schedule and in chaos, but also, like we talked about, the nutrition, the different mechanics when you are off schedule, when you are working to not sort of overcompensate for that chaos just with your arm strength that had carried him before. And then recognizing that he already spent a season doing that. So you have to now correct. All of those things went into his off-season training schedule. So now it's all putting it together. At first it was continuation with Kevin O'Connell with all of that work. And Kevin O'Connell did have input this offseason as well. And then continuing that, and then continuing those good habits, and then making sure that you're, doing what you need to do when you need to do it.
How much time he has to spend playing off schedule, I would think, is at least somewhat related to how good the offensive line is in front of him. How confident are they that group holds up?
Well, if you ask any of them, they'll tell you they're confident. But personally,
Wait, they might lie to you? No, come on.
No, I think it's really tough because you're not only in an unprecedented situation where like nobody got live reps with each other through the spring. So you've got the biggest guys on the roster essentially coming off their couches to training camp. And then you can't even fully physically hit people yet or fully physically go against each other yet until maybe like 1 or 2 practices in the last week. So they're missing something like, 1,000 reps, right? That they normally would have gotten, right? And that's all conditioning and it's all preparation. Not only that, but they have 2 starters who are coming off season-ending injuries in left guard Jen Oakboom and right guard Rob Havenstein. And like that, not only getting back into football mode after that, and both were knees. So not only getting back into football mode after that, but also there's so much unspoken language and communication that happens along the offensive line, and so much adjusting to the quarterback without being able to see him, and so much adjusting to the different running backs they're going to be using without being able to put both eyes on them. You have to feel them instead. And so there's just so many intricacies that happen. So on its own, you have guys, if you don't have guys who are coming back from season-ending injuries, on its own, I'd be worried, right? About any offensive line in the league, not just the Rams, because you factor in the Rams not being good last year in terms of their protection and their ability to keep space open and safe. And then you factor in the injuries. I really, and it could come along about midseason. If these guys stay healthy, they could be a very good group about midseason.
They were better in the second half.
Yeah.
That's
like
sort of what happened last year.
Yeah.
Right, as they just started getting more of the same guys. Because the first half, it was just patchwork.
Yeah.
You kept having different guys going in and out.
And that's what they did. The smart thing that they did at camp this year was they picked their 5 guys and they just stuck with them. Like they didn't waste their time, because it could have been a bunch of different guys, especially at those guard positions, and then maybe even at center.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but they picked 5 and they just ran them through camp with the first team.
So you you just sort of drop. I mean, I don't want to say the pretense because it often is an open competition, but for something like this, from practical standpoints, like, look, we don't have time to do that. Yeah. This is who we think are the best 5. This is who we're running with.
Yeah. And it's just like, you have to get those reps. And so they were just like, we don't have time to waste on a competition. It's the same reason, and we're going to go back to Cam Akers now. It's the same reason why you saw Cam Akers taking more snaps in training camp than Malcolm Brown or Darrell Henderson before Darrell got hurt. It wasn't because, Cam Akers is getting the most snaps. Like he's gonna be the number 1 guy, which I do still think he will be by the end of the season.
Better again. I texted you about this.
But the point was like, it wasn't about marking his territory as the number 1 guy. It was, you got to onboard this kid. Like somehow you have to get these guys the reps that they need. These offensive linemen, these receivers who are young, the running backs, you have to get everybody the reps that they need. Otherwise they're just not going to be ready. And there's no more important position to do that than on the offensive line.
And that's for the Rams, because they need, in theory at least, some people think Malcolm Brown is better than others. He played pretty well when he's had a chance, but the Rams replaced in some ways Brandon Cooks with Van Jefferson. They replaced Todd Gurley with Cam Akers. These are significant players on good teams where rookies are like, how much do they expect / need the 2 early drafted rookies to perform this year for the offense to bounce back to where it was a couple years ago?
Yeah, I think expect and need are actually matched here because they came in, they really liked their draft class. And that's the other thing is that Les Snead, he's not the contract guy, he's the draft guy, right? And because of the situation that they're put in with their contracts, and now especially with Jalen Ramsey's deal and then an incoming Cooper Kupp deal, they are going to have to absolutely nail rounds if they have a first round, which who knows when the next time they're going to have one, right? But like they absolutely have to nail rounds 2 through 5, if not 2 through 6 and 7, right? So they absolutely have to nail those rounds in the draft and then develop those guys, get as much out of them as they can, not only right away as rookies, but also develop them into guys who will consistently start and be featured players for them so they don't have to pay them, right? So then with Cam Akers and Van Jefferson, these guys like very much live up to the hype. I mean, they just do.
They've been good.
They're like Van Jefferson, and I covered Christian McCaffrey all through college. I covered Christian McCaffrey the first time he stepped on an NFL field, and I covered him all the way up until he got his massive contract. I have not seen a rookie come in as prepared for the NFL as Van Jefferson is.
Wow.
Except for Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. He's like, he lives up to the hype, and he's going to get worked in. I don't think he's a replacement for Brandon Cooks, because what they were doing with Brandon was like a lot of stress.
I was going to say.
Yeah, which I got your point with that too, by the way.
Thank you for speaking, sort of shepherding me along, because clearly we've established I'm not good at explaining things.
I'm not going to yell at you this time, but I really think like
I'm trying to body shame.
I won't yell at you this time, I promise. No, but it's pretty remarkable. It really is. And everybody in that locker room knows it. I mean, you've got Jalen Ramsey pulling him aside for extra tutorials after matchups, and Jalen Ramsey, who will never, ever admit that he got beat by anyone in his life, just very forward with the fact that Van has gotten him multiple times in practice. Like it's really, really going to be interesting to see that guy's career take off. And so it's something where, now I'm of course getting off on a tangent because I'm excited, but like, it's really, they expected these guys to come in prepared. Cam Akers, because of the nature of his position, it's going to be a little tougher, I think. He's going to have a lot of contact early on. And so he'll kind of, I think, be, I think he'll do the work and the sort of the ground and pound work, and then he'll start to pull away in that regard, like middle to latter half of the season. I think you're going to see Van Jefferson as early as this weekend. You'll definitely see him in the next couple of weeks. Wow. When you play the Buffalo Bills, who have not played a single snap of dime since Sean McDermott took over, you're going to see Van Jefferson like a lot.
It's interesting though. Like I remember when they drafted Van Jefferson, I read up on scouting reports, stuff like that on him because I'm not a college football expert by any stretch. And it's everything though that I read or heard about him was that he's more like a Robert Woods or a Cooper Kupp than he is, like a field stretcher, he's not directly, like, as you were saying, replacing Brandon Cooks or even Sammy Watkins before him. And the Rams seem like they're going into this season without one of those established guys, like a guy who does that, which on one hand, you worry if they'll miss someone like that. But then I was thinking about him, like, you know what? The receivers that Jared Goff has worked with best are guys like Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. I think Josh Reynolds is more like those guys than anybody that's left. And maybe the key is just put as many different catchers on the field, pass catchers on the field, who are as much like the guys that Goff thrives with. For whatever reason, if a field stretcher isn't really thriving with Goff, there's no reason to put a guy out there and then create the expectation of what do you do with him? And like, Brandon Cooks last year, really, he didn't make much of an impact. I mean, to be totally honest, and, he was better his first year with the Rams, but the second year didn't amount to much. And Sammy Watkins was a bust with the Rams. And I'm not saying it's on Sammy Watkins. I'm just saying these type of guys haven't seemed to thrive with Goff for whatever reason. So it seemed like with Jefferson, instead of trying to force one of those guys to thrive with Goff, just give him more of what works.
Yeah, the way that Sean McVay designs his offense, he creates so many different layers and like windows of catchable space within these layers. And a lot of it, like, sure, you want to be able to take the top off a defense a couple of times a game, right? Statistically, such a low probability success rate in the first place. It's like a 49% success rate in the first place. And then you're only going to run it maybe twice a game. So now you're down to, I'm terrible at math, but now you're down to like 22% where you're actually overall.
Carry the one.
Carry the one. He's like, there you go. You can make up some ground here, Brian. There you go.
Not with math.
No.
All right. Well, Jordan, it's been great having you.
It's such a low probability play that you can basically have a gadget guy. You could send Josh Reynolds deep a couple of times a game. You could send Nasimba Webster, who's got that top end speed. You could send him deep a couple of times a game, and you could stretch in that way where your money is being made. Very pun intended here, is like he creates these windows of catchable space in all of these various layers in the middle of the field. And he does that with tight ends, and he does that with receivers who are very much in the mold of Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and Van Jefferson. Very technical, like you said, the technician types. And Jared Goff has the ability to get the ball to them when he has time to throw. Yes. Because then he can sort of gauge what that catchable window is going to be, right? And so that I think is such a great point, because it really is. You have given now him, other than your that's funny. You've given him now in like outside of the offensive line, you've given him so many tools that like help him thrive. And so, like we started it out, it all comes back to Jared, obviously, but with Van and with these receivers, like I think you're spot on with that. You really you have to work with what is working for you.
Somebody asked the question, because we spent a lot of time talking about Goff, and here we go, Goff and the quarterback situation and all that. You flip to the other side of the ball, where the Rams have a lot of big names, just spent a ton of money on Jalen Ramsey, and the secondary, they have some really good players in the secondary, and I love John Johnson. I think first of all, he's just a great guy and a really entertaining person, but he's a really good football player.
Taylor Rapp
looks like he's going to be really good and all that. And then any defensive line unit that has Aaron Donald in it is going to be good. This is the question that everybody has. Ramsey's the great is asking the same thing. How confident are you in the linebacking? Because there's the group up front and there's the group in the end. The group in the middle is like a gigantic question mark.
Yeah. So the first thing, before I get into like some of the fun technical stuff, but the first thing is that Micah Kaiser could flat out play some football. So he is the one remaining like sure thing in the middle of the field right now, right? So Traven Howard obviously went out with the meniscus injuries, out for the season. Right now it's looking like the starters are going to be Micah Kaiser and then a rotation of like Troy Reeder and Kenny Young. And then that's all they have on depth chart, technically, because the guy they brought in, Justin Hollins, is going to give them edge depth with Terrell Lewis out, and he can shade inside if he has to. But he's still a work in progress in that regard, right? But
Mike seem like a lot of people.
No, it's certainly not. But there's a couple of reasons for that, actually. And this is like one of the most fun things. If it works, it could be like one of the most fun things ever, right? So first of all, in Brandon Staley, the new defensive coordinator, he has some of his schemes are sort of an homage, and it's a copycat league, so you're borrowing things from everybody. Sort of an homage to what Vic Fangio likes to do with his defenses. In those schemes, off-ball linebacker, which is that middle position, is the least, quote-unquote, least valuable, statistically, analytically, position on the defense. It's all about rush and coverage complement, right?
That's unusual. Just correct? Like,
well,
atypical.
It's not super atypical in a 3-4 in your standard 3-4, but it's atypical when you see like your really traditionalist, like a 4-3 ground and pound, big guys in the middle, fast guys on the edge, Luke Kuechly in the back. You know what I mean? Like it's atypical in terms of that, but it's technically your quote unquote least valuable. It's one of the reasons why they weren't willing to pay Corey Littleton the money that he was wanting. Because analytically speaking, it didn't match up to what the value on the position is in their defense, right? So what they're going to do now is, yes, those linebackers are going to have to play their butts off. And I do believe in Micah Kaiser. I think he can just flat out play football. But, obviously the lack of depth there is a concern. Well, what they're going to start to do, I think, if I'm educatedly speculating,
nice.
I think that they're going to play a lot more nickel than you're used to seeing out of them. And they're going to rotate that nickel to where it could be Troy Hill, who's a little bit smaller in stature. It could be Troy Hill 1 minute, and then he could rotate in with a bigger bodied safety. Jordan Fuller and Terrell Burgess were two guys, the rookies, who are really thriving in that role. They're also going to probably play their safeties closer to the line of scrimmage. And specifically, they might have John Johnson just like live there because he's just a really, really physical football player. And they're going to be really aggressive with how they move their safeties around. And then they're going to have extra defensive backs on the field. And so if you have extra DBs on the field in that regard, you can absolutely cover up for a lack of experience at inside linebacker. And especially if, you have a Jalen Ramsey. So normally if you're playing a lot of nickel packages and you have sort of these smaller bodied nickels who are in, you worry about the George Kittles, you worry about the Greg Olsons, right? Well, you will probably see Jalen Ramsey covering George Kittle this year in the slot.
Wow.
And I think that's so freaking fun, you guys. Like that is cool. I think that is so freaking cool, right? Because think about the that's just an epic battle.
Can we talk for a second here just about how excited you get about football and how cool that is? Because
it's half the reason why I wanted to come out here was because these guys freaking love football and I freaking love football. And
because not everybody, it is a dirty little secret in sports media. Not everybody loves the sport that they cover. You love football. And that's why we like having you on, because you love talking about football and you're good at it. And you can teach us things about what's happening with this team, which I appreciate. Anyway, carry on. I just thought that was really cool.
No, I love hearing that. That's actually the first time I heard that was in Carolina. I was in the locker room and I was Kurt Coleman, who's now going to be an analyst there. He was a great safety for them. He's going to be a field analyst there for them this year. And I was asking him to teach me a little bit more about diagnosing coverages and then how, once you do that, how you position your body. And like I was really getting into it, right? And this is why I miss locker room situations, because I really like to learn. And half the stuff I do, excuse me, I almost said a word, but half the stuff that I do,
you can if you want.
Half the stuff that I do in the locker room is me learning. I like to learn stuff on backgrounds that I'm better when I write, so I can be more educated with what I share with the reader. Well, I was learning about diagnosing certain things with certain coverages with Kurt Coleman. And I'm like, I'm ready to like shade a receiver. And he pulls back and he was like, you really love football, don't you? And I was like, I love football. I was like really very Sean McVay-esque, right? So that's part of the reason why I wanted to come out here is because I was like, these dudes really love football and they could probably teach me some things. So, but I got off topic. But yeah, so I think that's how they're going to, thank you, Sir Showboat. I appreciate that.
Here's another, you want a big compliment. You're like the Momo, Ramona Shelburne of football. That's a big compliment right there.
I love her so much. Now I'm getting all red again. So thank God the lighting's bad in my apartment. But that's getting back to
furniture, which is cool.
I do. That's how they're going to help fix their linebacker situation. Long story short.
A couple things we need to do before we let you go, because we're running at the end of the hour and you've got a football game to cover this weekend. Although you've been drinking coffee, so you already said you're not going to sleep. Whenever we have Jourdan Rodrigue on, that means we have to have the obligatory photo of Jordan's dog.
Oh, there's Tucker. Hi, Tucker.
How cute. This looks like the face of somebody who wants a treat.
I know.
They definitely want a treat.
He's over on the couch. He's like staring at me right now.
Is Tucker settled in now? Like, does Tucker feel like this is home?
I think he thinks he actually literally owns the house. Like, I think he thinks he owns it.
Well, the animals do. We have a dog and a cat in our place, and they absolutely run it. Like it's their place, and there's the dog.
I was hoping you'd pull the picture out.
Yeah, that's her blue steel photo right there. Her modeling shot.
She just came back from a training run.
Look at her.
Can she play left guard?
Oh, we're not turning this into
They look like they could be friends.
I feel like they would be friends. Yeah.
They could be friends. How big is Tucker?
Tucker's about 40 pounds.
Ooh, Matilli sometimes gets nervous around big dogs.
Tucker's very like, I'll let you have your own space if you need it with other dogs.
Okay. All right. Okay. Because sometimes
because his owner is so weird.
Matilli gets a little bit dicey with larger dogs. So we'll see, but maybe we can get them together at some point once this pandemic.
If Tucker could talk, he'd be like, "Please stop telling me about the cover 2. I get it."
I know. Tucker's like,
all right. So I'm
hearing about this team.
Before we go, how good do you think they are going to be?
Oh, that was part of my rapid fire questions.
Ooh, okay. We'll go. Okay, so
you answer this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I still stick with my previous statement. I think they're going to be 9-7, but I think they're going to snatch one of these new playoff spots, and then I think they're going to make a run in the playoffs. And I think Sean McVay can coach his ass off. I think that they'll be getting better and more cohesive by that point in the season up front if they can stay healthy. And I think that's a good surge to be able to make, even if you have like a so-so little bit over 500 record near the end of the season. If you're surging at that time, which I think they very well could be, especially with all these young guys on this team that could develop into really special players, you could very much make a late surge at the end of the season and then make a playoff run.
This division's hard.
Yeah, it cannibalizes itself. It's insane.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll do a couple of these. And by the way, this is another really nice compliment from Frankfurt All. Best reporter to cover the team since our return to LA. I would like to point out that Andy and I set the bar very low by putting a couple articles ourselves. So you're welcome. All right, rapid fire questions. You answered the first one. Rams finished 9-7. Where is that in the division?
Oh, that's tough. Third.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nobody yell at me because I think it's okay, even if they do finish third, because I do think they're going to get at least a wild. I think they'll get the wild card spot. Yeah.
Better season, Cam or Tom?
Cam, are you kidding me? Tom's washed. Cam Newton is going to have a great season. He's playing pissed off. He is like, oh my gosh, this is going to be fun, guys. This is going to be really fun.
Plus, as we've discussed before, Tom Brady has been so arrogant in his touchdown in Tampa, like running around like he owns the place. No respect for the COVID rules. No respect for anything going on in that city. Get over yourself.
I think it's so telling too. Like they gave him they're giving him so much help over there. Like it's his walker. It's like the walker with the tennis balls on the bottom. Like,
No,
this is what you really need all these guys, Tom? Really?
Well,
I'm
really hoping that he really, really needs Chris Godwin. Like,
desperately
needs.
I love that you're referring to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as a walker with tennis balls
but like,
at the bottom. I get what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. But like, I'm just saying that is awesome.
Yeah, those guys are great. I want the best for those guys. I just don't think Tom Brady's going to have a good season.
Unexpected surprise on the Rams this year. In terms of players is what I meant by that.
Oh, unexpected. I think I just spoiled the surprise on Van Jefferson. Unexpected surprise.
It can be Van Jefferson.
Well, but I think now we're kind of expecting him. I was going to say something about Aaron Donald against the run, but that was like kind of a sensitive topic on Twitter the other day. But we could go with Van Jefferson. Okay. Yeah, but
I also appreciate after the beginning of the show when it's like, let's correct Brian. I'm surprised nobody said all of surprises are unexpected, Brian. So
own yourself like that.
Well, just because
you had us.
I did it. I should have let it go.
True. I mean, yeah.
Super Bowl winner.
Oh, I think the Chiefs are going to repeat.
That's kind of neat.
It's spicy.
Andy?
I know.
I mean, for you?
No. That's
yeah.
It would be interesting. I mean, that rarely happens in the NFL.
I know, yeah, but I think this is the team to do it, though. Yeah,
they looked pretty damn good yesterday.
I know
they looked really, really good. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, my guy, first-round pick. Not that anybody cares, but he was great. That guy looked really good.
I saw this great tweet, and I want to get you guys' opinion on this. If you could sing Clyde Edwards-Helaire's name to the same tune of the chorus of any song, what would you sing it to?
Oh boy,
isn't that great? I sat on that for a while today. I was
Did you come up with anything?
No, because I wanted to hear what you guys had to say.
That's tough off the top of your head,
isn't it? Though, but it was so fun.
At 11:06.
I know, but this is me on. I had some coffee, so.
Yeah, you really like at the beginning of the show. You're like, guys, I'm kind of dragging a little bit here. It's been a long week. Now you finished your cup, and you're like, let's do this.
I know. I'm ready.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What about like to Volare? Could you like Hilare? You can't fit the whole Clyde
Edwards. But it's not for rhyming. It's just the tune. It's like not rhyming. It's just the tune. So it's like
whoa.
Like you could do some Tiny Dancer, like Clyde Hilare. You know what I mean? Like you could do some Tiny Dancer.
Now, is it Hilare or Hilar? Because I have to think about this for.
I think you could do a little bit of a vowel tweak if you want to.
Well, again, if you're putting it to Volare, then you can just Hilare in there. Also, too, the Rams kicker that they cut. How did you pronounce that? I never got a chance to learn.
Hyrulahu.
Oh man, that was a mistake. They should have kept him.
I know. And everyone would be like, what? And I'd say, yeah, hula hoop. That's what I said.
Hallelujah. Like game winning kick. Like they should have kept that guy.
Did you guys know there was someone sorry, but someone in the CFL made a song off of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, and they made a song and sang this song, and it's on YouTube. It's Hallelujah based on Hyruluhu's name and montage of him kicking.
Yeah, again, I don't know if Sam or the new guy or whatever is any good. I don't particularly care. I wanted them to keep the kicker with the cooler name. I think that was a horrible mistake.
God bless. Well, I mean, the kicker that they kept, he's got an unusual name, right?
Samuel, yeah.
Samuel.
What's his last name?
It's like Slocum or something.
Slowman.
Right?
Samuel.
Slowman.
Yeah.
Samuel Slowman.
How is that an unusual name?
I just think.
I thought it was something different.
I think that's what too.
He looks pretty fast to me, guys. I don't know.
All right. Well,
I see what you did there, Jordan.
All right. So this is going to be an interesting season. It's going to be just the NFL, the Rams, like trying to make all of this happen. As you said, it could be tentative at best, tenuous at best. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, the NBA sort of like laid down the trump card in terms of like, okay, you guys want to make a season work. This is how you make a season really work without a hitch. It's hard as hell and restrictive, But I mean, the NBA has had barely any hiccups. The worst thing that's happened was been Daniel House, and they just kicked him out. I mean, boy, that guy screwed up.
Can't a man find love inside of a bubble without getting heckled by everyone?
When the love doesn't involve your wife, the answer is no.
He's married?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. His wife tweeted today.
He's married. That's
his wife
problematic.
put something on Instagram today. I saw. I was scrolling through and I saw it. She knows. Yeah. The strategy to that though was interesting. He was like, okay, so the call is coming from inside the house kind of situation.
I gotta say, I mean, I do not condone cheating on your wife under any circumstances, but just tactically trying to do it inside the bubble is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really poorly thought out as a plan. That I didn't know he was married. I just assumed that. Somebody asked me that tonight, and I was like, "Oh, no, I don't think so." Oh, wow.
No, he is.
That is.
He was, but
really bad.
He is
really, really bad.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan. Well, that's a sad note to end.
I know. Who brought this up?
Wait, hold on. Let's not do it there. We're running a little over. We'll put the dogs back up. That's exactly right. We'll put the dog pictures. We'll end on pictures of dogs because everyone likes that. Actually, have you ever seen this photo? Look at that.
Look at that hair. Who is that?
That was me.
This is what he is now. This is then.
Oh God,
this
Jordan,
is now.
that was such good hair.
Shampoo ad. Oh my God.
I'm about 25 or 26 there, and a friend of mine she actually curled my hair before that photo. Like it was long. It was always long, but she actually decided to curl it. I think we've been drinking.
Yeah.
But look at that. I mean,
but you decided on that face all by yourself, huh?
Yeah. Well, I was in the middle of rocking.
Face of a man intensely, deeply invested in his music.
Yeah.
In his sound.
I was at one
back then.
I was at one with my bass there, Jordan.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to play one of like the 3 songs I knew how. I was really bad. It was very
all
bad.
right, so we will do this again during the season, and especially if Cam Akers is either overperforming or underperforming the draft position that you recommended for him. But we will definitely have you back. Jourdan Rodrigue covers the Rams in the NFL for The Athletic. She is. We are very, 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 very lucky to have her in town doing all this because she does great work. Very excited. Like you really are good at this. We're happy.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
You guys are good at this. So thank you.
Whatever this is. You guys are really good at it.
You guys are good at like
I don't know.
all of this thing called life. You guys are good.
All right, good talk, Jordan.
Coming up next week, we got a lot of you can stay for this part if you want where we promote next week, or you can hang out. Whatever you want to do, it's fine with us. But you can stay. Coming up next week, great slate of guests. Monday, Dave Schilling is going to join us. Tuesday, Keith Knight, who is the creator of
the new show on Hulu.
The new show on Hulu, which is getting some great write-ups. Jeff Pearlman, great author, has got a new book about the Lakers, the three-peat Lakers coming up. Tanya Ganguly covers the Lakers on Thursday, and Vinny Bonsignor on the Raiders and the NFL on Friday.
Yeah,
Jordan's going to tune in on Friday.
Oh, yay. I'll send comments. Vinny's the
Yay.
best.
All right.
I'm a big Dave Schilling fan, too, by the way. I follow
Dave is
him on
awesome.
Twitter.
He's so funny.
I'm a big fan.
Hilarious.
I need his advice on how to dress better, too, because
Dave is a dapper man.
If you would like to come on Monday, I bet Dave would help you.
Yeah, because I really need help. So he's like,
if you want to join in on Monday, we'll do it.
We will do that for you.
I think the platform will have us.
We can have up to 10 people.
All right. Well, I mean, if you want to come back, come back.
I'll send comments. I don't want to invade the space.
The Kamenetzky brothers, Dave Schilling, and Jordan, and 6 of her worst dressed friends can all join us on the show.
The Athletics' worst dressed beat writer, Jourdan Rodrigue. Yeah.
I don't know.
I've seen no disrespect to Rich. I've seen Rich wear the same. Rich has 3 shirts and then they're all black. So don't beat yourself up about that. Thank you again for giving us the time. This was awesome. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.